We are recording, not live streamed. I don't think anybody wants to see this today. I'm too tired.
Yeah, and I've got my usual stick around for the first hour a little more if I can. I'm in the middle of a 4-night stretch, so.
Oh boy. Yeah, I bet you guys are busy right now.
Yes, I got floated up to one of the main COVID floors last night. It's fun.
Exactly. All right. So, Diane, do you want to go to the agenda that you just sent out? You're more than welcome to do that. Or if you guys just want to go over the agenda to start with and then kind of see where it goes from there. Go ahead.
We'll just do the usual thing. Okay. Is anybody else wanted to declare any need to leave early?
I'm good.
Okay, so it's December 12th. This is the work session. And looks like we have everyone, all council people except for Joe Curl, Councilman Curl. We also have Jess Shepp and Eric Fisher. And is there anybody else that I can't see?
No, I think that's actually the only ones I
yeah. So okay, so anyway, so just of course there's things that just got emailed that are not on the agenda that we'll need to go over, but we just the usual start with the legislation. There are two things that were, just to point out, there are two things that were tabled: the sidewalk code and the reserve dedication. Otherwise, I don't know if Mark wants to mention anything about the resolutions and ordinances that are up for readings.
Not really. Most of those are pretty cut and dry. And I need looking for maybe an update on the reserve dedication. The sidewalk thing just got pushed out again last night, so I'm sure no one's had time to look at it.
I have, and it still isn't right.
Okay, if you could make a list of where it needs corrected, we could get on that then. Thank you,
Tony. Mark, I'd like to jump in on that if I could. It's not, so at the end of the day, 2 engineering firms have looked over it, and it is correct. So
no, it isn't, Eric. Let's don't.
All right, Tony.
Let's don't start this.
I'm going to say my piece, and council can make a decision. Okay. I am obviously sidewalk construction is not my forte. So I asked MI. I said, "Hey guys, send me over what you guys did for these sidewalks and these aprons and everything here, so that we can make sure that we have the correct text in our code, because we're using code from another sister city." And so they sent over their specs. It was from EMH&T, and I sent that over to Mike, and I said, with our text, and I said, "Mike, please look at this. Please make sure that this is what MI and EMH&T said they did for our sidewalks. Please make sure this matches up with our code." Mike looked through it. He said, "Yes, make this small adjustment in the percentages. And by the way, here's the correct exhibit, which I'm sending back to you to use that with this code. You're good to go." That's it. So you don't like it, you guys are welcome to change it. But at this point, what we have in there matches what MI has done with the sidewalks in the new subdivision.
I can tell you, Eric, that the sidewalks are not built with 6 inches of concrete extending into the sidewalks in that village. They're not built that way.
I can tell you over it. So at this point, I can take you out in the field with the engineer, and you can have the discussion with the engineer if we all want to spend that kind of time.
I don't care what the engineer says. What I would like to do is create an easily understandable sidewalk code. One of the other things that I don't like about the code is referring to the state Department of Transportation's standards, which all it says is standard 632. And then you got to look up the standard, and that, it doesn't need to be as complicated as it is, Eric.
Actually, it does.
And I would like to hear, Eric, please.
To the attorneys, Eric, it does. So that's why we have the specs in there.
Eric, stop. I would like you taken out of this conversation. And then this, I'll go to the next legislative committee meeting, and we'll talk about the changes that I'd like to see, because I'm tired of arguing with you.
Tony, that's great. Come to that meeting, or I guess I shouldn't speak for Mark since it's his meeting, but bring your text, right? Because just coming and yelling, saying that what's there is wrong isn't going to move us anywhere.
Well,
Right?
I can go
Since
through-
nobody else, hold on, Tony, right?
Oh,
I'm still talking.
Sorry.
Because nobody on the legislative committee is a sidewalk maker expert either. And since we have the blessing of our village engineer on this text, right? That's the sidewalk maker professional that we pay to opine on these things. So if you have a differing opinion, what I'd love, if you want to convince me, is, your notated point of where they are wrong and whatever your proposed draft is, because otherwise I feel it will not be productive.
Well, I can tell you right off the bat, here's
No,
one.
not now, not now, because
listen,
this
I
isn't
got a
the
minute
time.
to talk,
That you-
okay? As you can see, I'm not in the mood for any BS this morning, all right? I've been talking about this sidewalk code for a while. It just came out last night at whatever time it was. And now here we are talking about it. It isn't right. And here's the one thing I want all of you, if you can't understand some basic, I wouldn't even say construction principles, then you have no business, wasting the time of the village, slowing this process down. The one thing that is wrong, first off, is that in the specifications, it starts off describing the specifications for sidewalks. Then it goes into the specifications for aprons, and it doesn't change the numbering. It just goes W, X, Y, and then it's all goofed up. That's not a engineering issue. That is a basic formatting of the text issue, which doesn't need to have an engineer look at it. So look at W, it's 07 W, and then it goes, that's where the end of sidewalk description is. And then it goes into aprons. It should be changed out. That's one of the problems in there. And there is none of the sidewalks in that development have 6 inches of, or 1 foot of sidewalk beside the apron that's 6 inches deep. Then maybe Mike Flickinger hasn't gone out and looked at this to confirm this, but that's the case. So yeah, I'll go to the next.
Right, and as Councilperson Wolf pointed out, just bring a itemized list of your changes and how you'd like the language to reflect, and we will discuss that at legislation. Our other thing, of course, that is sort of in limbo, not limbo, we're still building, is the noise ordinance. We just got an email on that this morning, so I do not have anything prepared for that.
Correct. That's just for you to review by Monday. If you want to ask, his chief's not at this meeting, but he'll be at the Monday meeting. He gave the stuff to me the other day as we've gone back and forth in our discussion. So please review. That's a quick attachment, and we could have legislation ready to just be quickly adopted if the village would like to add number 6 on.
If we could, since this is a work session, if we wanted to look at it now, I skimmed it right before the meeting. It took me 2 minutes to read the 2 texts. If anybody wants to just look at it now.
I don't.
Yeah, 1 second. I can bring it up here on the thing.
I like that animal or fowl is in there, just because I like fowl.
Yep, some nasty rooster, huh?
Yeah. And then the rest of the stuff for Monday, we have the rules of council. That's pretty self-explanatory. We have the budget. I'm sure Tiffany's going to give us some little changes on that or tweaks. We have the supplemental appropriations that we've been being emailed about from Leah, I want to say. So yeah, here's the thing. Creator causing the creation of noise so as disturb or disquiet of a reasonable person or normal sensitivity, including but not limited to the following. The emission of sound in such a manner as to be plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the building structure, vehicle, equipment, machinery, animal, or fowl from which the sound is emanating. The only thing I would say about this right off the bat, does that mean if I'm in my backyard and my backyard's probably a good 50 feet deep, and if my neighbor's dogs are barking, does that count?
Good question for chief, because there's separate code to handle barking dogs.
Then I will give that question to Chief tomorrow.
There's also the section in my email, and I'll bring it up real quick. Something that we have talked about is, and again, Jesse has to review this because I'm not sure, I haven't seen it used in Central Ohio before, but there's code that allows for non-observation of a police officer to make a citation if there are more than, there's 2 or more witnesses. And that was something that Chief dug up, so I'll give him credit on that. And I attached that, that's at the bottom of my email. So just read through that. And I want to give Jesse a chance to review that as well. But that's something that we could weave in there in some form. Maybe not in time for Monday, but we could definitively, get it in there somewhere.
I thought that was a pretty interesting one, because the two different neighbors complaining during the same time frame would be as good as a police officer themselves witnessing it. And so that would cause the neighbors to need to step up. But I thought that was good, because I think it answers some of the concerns of the neighbors. They call it, by the time they call the police out, then the people calm down, and then the police go away, and then the people pick up again, and that sort of thing. So that kind of tries to handle that situation. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yes.
Where did this come from?
This code in front of you comes from Dublin. So our code goes through number 5, and Dublin obviously has the same code like a lot of our sister cities do. And so they added from 6 on. And so we didn't, at some point, they revised their code and added 6 on. We didn't do that at some point in the past.
Well, I can tell you, to me, it sucks.
Yeah, I'm just
to
telling
say
you what's
that
quick.
you cannot hear, like if I'm playing my radio in my front yard, because I'm in my front yard a lot, and they can hear that from 50 feet away, that's not permissible. That's the way I read that.
Yeah, and I think I'd leave that for Chief on how the officers would make a judgment call on that in the field.
I'm not concerned about what the officers say right at this point. When I'm just reading it, it's English, it's written in English, I understand English, and it says that if a noise is made and you can hear 50 feet away, that's not allowed.
Yeah, let me bring something else up. So hold on one second.
Well, actually, and also what it says is plainly audible, which is a little bit different than I can hear it. It's like, hey, it's like I'm watching that movie with you. But looks like Tiffany's got something. Go ahead. You're on mute, Tiff.
Tiffany's
On
on
you,
mute.
Tiffany.
Okay. So Tony, I kind of had the same type of thing. I have 2 teenagers that have people over. They yell, they scream, they play basketball, but it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had questions about whether or not we're going to do a difference between what's going on at 2 a.m. and what's going on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm also one that, if we ever put a swimming pool back in our backyard, we would be playing music. Those houses over there are 50 feet apart in the new section. So I think what I'm able to do and what they're able to do is also 2 different things. So I don't know if we're going to go into detail. I also am not a fan of, this is not a retirement village. I'm just going to flat out say it. I mean, come on, we've got a lot of younger families. We have a lot of families. I think that there is a respectful, you should be respectful of your neighbors. I'm not in disagreement with that. But we are not in an area that, it should be, it has to be peaceful and quiet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't believe that's the neighborhood I moved into. So
Can I just say that that's a wonderful thing that we have a young, diverse, and growing community.
Right.
I mean, that's the future of our community. And we don't want it to be purely a retirement village. Not that that doesn't have its place, but
and maybe I'm going to say this, and Diane, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Tony, you've been here a really long time, but I grew up in this neighborhood. When we went trick-or-treating, I was the only kid, our family was the only kids on Jordan Road. So my point being is, 20 years ago, this was not a huge kid neighborhood. I mean, once I think, you know, a lot of the kids like my parents' age got older, I don't know, they didn't have full buses like they do now. You know, maybe it was hit or miss and all of that, but I think we need to be very careful with the noise ordinance. I do believe that there are people that are getting upset because their neighbors are loud. But I also, and at 2 o'clock in the morning is not acceptable. I will completely agree with all of that. But I think 2 o'clock in the afternoon versus 2 o'clock in the morning is two totally different things. If I want to play music on my front porch, I should be able to play music on my front porch within reason, not every day, not blaring, but come on. If you can hear it 50 feet away, great. I mean, I don't think that that's the end of the world.
Yeah, we need to absolutely have some form of how to say like a clause for a reasonable time or a reasonable event. Like, but that's so hard to legislate.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think that there should be quiet hours.
Jesse.
What I would say to that, and I certainly understand that, and I would say that this legislation has been interpreted in other cities as that language where it says to disrupt the peace and quiet of any reasonable person of normal sensitivity. What that means is a reasonable person at 2 in the afternoon is different than a reasonable person at 2 in the morning. And I think what we've run into now with our noise ordinance is that there's no objective criteria that really gives the police any authority to do anything. And I think that's where we came up with the 50 number, and that's why other cities have used it. And I certainly understand every issue with it, you know, with the radio on your front lawn. It just more so gives police something that isn't quite so vague. So I can look at some other options. I just know that this generally is what many cities use, just because it gives them a number that they can hang their hat on if they're going to write a ticket.
I think the reasonable part in that makes sense too. I mean, and let's just go with, if you have the same person calling the police 50 times a day on every single noise that they hear, I'm just going to go with maybe that's not a reasonable person. So
I would agree.
They have self-selected themselves as unreasonable.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying it's not justified. So there could be that case. So again, I don't want to sound like that person's the crazy one. It could be that they have an issue with obviously a neighbor or something. So yeah, I mean, and I will also say this is something we do have to do sooner rather than later. So I mean, I would love to see this get done in one of the next couple meetings. So because obviously you guys have all seen that we're having some issues.
I would put out right now that I would be in support of the language talking about a reasonable person at a reasonable time. That'd be something that I think I could stomach. So that's my bit.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, some of this I think we need to ask Chief Delp tomorrow if that reasonable has within it in his mind, in his office, because he's going to be the person instructing his officers how to enforce. Is that built in enough with, okay, that depends on the time, or do we just need to put in something about after 11 o'clock on weekends and after 10 o'clock on weeknights and all that language that we saw, I believe, in Westerville's from when they were trying to go after the music concert venue that was adjacent to them.
Okay, maybe we could give Chief Monday a couple scenarios, and he could tell us how he would direct his team to approach them. Like Tony's example of it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm out in the front yard and I've got music or something on, and somebody complains. How would the police officer approach that or whatever? So, you know, different scenarios. playing basketball and it's 11 o'clock at night and the music is going in his backyard. So maybe we could give them a couple scenarios like that and just see if we had this code and this was the scenario, what would happen? Just so we can get an idea of how they would take care of it.
That makes total sense to me.
Okay.
And then somehow I seem to have misplaced, cannot find my, there it is, people. I hate it when you people do that. You replied all to Becky's council meeting packet and then it got buried in the thread and I couldn't find it for a moment. We have the rules of council. As I said, those are pretty self-explanatory. I don't believe we made any changes to them. Annual appropriations, the budget. Once again, I'm sure Tiffany, you have a couple little minor tweaks to talk about today.
Well, Kim, so just to stop there, Kim sent an email this morning. No, Friday. Yeah, Friday
about
at
supplemental appropriations.
Supplemental, right, at 8:10 p.m. And there were, I didn't have a chance to then go back to the budget and look to see, but there were 3 things on there that had to be adjusted. One for workers' compensation fees that are now due at the end of the year instead of the beginning of next year. The second one was the debt service on the final payment of the medic vehicle, which there was some set aside for that automatically, but there was a balance. So she had to bring some more money over, though she didn't say how much. She said some, not significant. And then the third thing was small, quote, couple of small increases in the fire department, along with some offsetting reductions to close everything out and wrap it up. So those were the 3 things that she made an adjustment to on the appropriations for next year, the 17-2020. So if you have a chance to look for those 3 things, if that's of interest, but it sounds like that is what she did. So that's what her email was about, just to say. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
That's quite all right. You did a nice job summarizing that. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she also did indicate that we might need to pass this quickly.
That's the impression I read into it as well.
Yeah.
The supplement was driven by a couple of things, and typically I don't like to ask for waived readings, but these are end of the year things that we weren't certain about until just this week. So it looks like she wants that waived and passed on Monday.
It would, yeah, pretty much. She can't access or act on the budget until it's into the new year. She can't access that money or execute on anything until this budget's passed. So I would say that we would have to pass it tomorrow or Monday.
So there we go. That is an important addendum to that. And then the only other thing we have is apparently Sean Piney has concluded his 6-month probation trial period as an officer, and we're looking to do the first reading of confirming him to the job. I'm sure Chief Delp will give a 30-second spiel on how he's fitting in well and doing good and whatnot. And
you know what I always ask for.
More candy? I don't know. Yeah, that's for something, I'm sure.
No, I always ask the other couple people. I've always asked the chief for, his stuff, bio and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep, and I'm sure he would not be moving for us to do this if he didn't if he wasn't working out. So that's about all for legislation. I mean, since we canceled the December, whatever it was going to be, 21st or 22nd meeting, that also ended up canceling the legislation meeting because I didn't see why we would have that meeting if we're not having council that night. So when it comes to sidewalks and things like that, we will have to finish that up at the January legislative meeting.
Yeah.
That's fine, but we could, I mean, a number of us said we were available on that Monday. I know Tiffany was not, but, so I wouldn't object if you wanted to have one on that Monday.
We'll just say the sidewalks aren't going anywhere. So it's cold. There'll be no sidewalk work between now and January.
Well, but yeah, it's just that we wouldn't have, we might be able to actually wrap it up because there's nothing else.
I think
That and the noise ordinance, right?
But
Between
we
myself and
can't
Tony.
wrap it up because we won't have a council meeting that night to actually vote on it, table it, and vote on it. So
Yeah,
whether we do it that night or in January, the actual ordinance gets passed at the earliest at the same time in that January meeting, was my thought towards it.
Okay.
yeah, I think reasonably, Tony needs some time to put his list together. And I need time to go on certain points to the engineer and say, I need this verified, or not verified for that matter specifically. So.
Okay. And then the last thing is that, is there any update on the dedication, reserves dedication?
The update is there's still some things hanging out there, which I'm going to try hard to motivate them over the next month between now and obviously our next work session. And they're silly things. There's, Chief and I drove this past week just to verify signs, made up a nice map to get over to them. Essentially, there's some signs that went in, but it was kind of half thought out, and there's things that we requested aren't in. So there's just things that need detail stuff, Diane, that we're trying to get rectified here. But they're the ones that are gonna keep paying their property taxes until they dedicate it. So we'll motivate them.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have anything for the legislation or for the rest of the Monday council meeting? Any other comments on the council agenda for Monday? Okay, so the next thing is to, at this point, we can vary as much as we want to, but the next thing on the agenda we normally discuss is we jump back and forth between committee reports and administrative updates. So we want to go with the committee reports. The first one up is streets.
Streets? Did they say streets?
Streets, yep.
I can say that the leaf pickup, I believe, is completed. But I don't have anything else with sewers. I'm still waiting for Mike's report. Yeah, that's all I got. Are you putting up your talking hand there, Mayor? Please.
Okay, so I did invite Mike to our last meeting of the year. I'm going to give him a 15-minute microphone and that's it. So just kidding. But I did invite Mike to the final meeting just to give a brief update of where we are, what we're still waiting for and all that kind of stuff, just for all of council. That way, January in the first, right in the beginning, we can get moving on some stuff. I know he was still doing some mapping and things like that down at East Shore. And to be completely honest, I don't even know which, at this point, even I'm confused as to which project we were working on over there. So I would like an update from him, but I would actually not like the update. I would like everybody to get the update at the same time. So I did invite Mike. I do expect him to be there Monday, and hopefully we can keep it to, keep us within our reasonable amount of time on Monday night for you guys. So
Well, I think what he has to say is that, one of the big accomplishments for the administration and the village this year has been all the street stuff. So it's good to get a good status on where we are with that. And
exactly. And that's why, yeah, I don't bring them all the time because every time we bring them, it costs us money. But I think this is a final end of year. What have we done and where are we going? So I know we have a couple of projects in 2021 that have been postponed a couple times, one of being the Maplewood intersection. We've waited until we opened up that connector. It's obviously open, so that's going to be something that we really want to focus on, and making sure that we don't skip a year for televising. Honestly, we just had 2 huge projects going, so adding another televising just didn't make it makes sense, but it's at some point it becomes too much when you start getting residents complaining because the roads are closed and this and that. And obviously, I'm sure everybody has seen it. So we did enough projects this year with minor inconveniences, but even those minor ones, people they are not happy with. So next year, getting back on pace to do televising, getting back on pace to do all of that, and keep moving forward with the final projects for the storm sewers. So, but he'll go over all that. So if anybody has questions for him, get them ready. And then hopefully we don't have a bunch of potholes this year. So that'll be our next January, February thing.
Well, we generally have Mike in for January to talk about, usually January, I think, right? To just talk about the task orders, the status of all the task orders, the grueling one, but will that be in January?
That's going to be up to you guys. He actually does that anytime that we do, there's a new person chairing that, or if there's new council members that don't really understand it. That being said, he does send me an update on those every couple months, and I actually did just get a new one, but that's something that obviously he can do. I mean, no, we are expecting an actual streets committee meeting, and hopefully that, that's one of the things that we're going to be asking them in this meeting Monday night is, we've been waiting for some information to move forward on Yasmin Market. We've been waiting for some information from his people to get some stuff done so we could ask a couple things. What are we doing? Where do we go from here with Yasmin? We've paid money, we've done this. Now, what do we do? Right. What did we find? What are we looking for? And same thing with the East Shore Court project. Obviously, we're back moving forward on that. What do we need to do to get that one moved forward? So yes, I mean, I think an overview is what's going to happen Monday. And then January, it would be more of a streets meeting, obviously not a council meeting. So, I mean, I'm totally on board, and I would expect that one to be your long one, really long one.
Okay. And I just wanted to say that the crew finally came back around to the West Bridge Street next to me, and the pipe that goes to the creek, and they actually lined it, and it looks really nice.
Good.
It just really looks great. It took them a long time too. They were there for an entire, very long day doing that. So
well, yeah, they had. I mean, at one point I thought they were done, and then there was a list of problems that they they couldn't get into them, they couldn't do certain things, so they were we had to send out notifications to residents that they were going to be on their property. So we had to do that in 2 different locations. One was at the end of our street, Park Lane. We had to get some notifications out, and then we also had some on West Bridge, Minerva Lake Road, a couple other ones over in that area. So they were here yesterday. So I know they're still not done with a couple, specific projects that they're currently working on.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Mike should be able to give us some updates on all of that. So again, if anybody has questions, make sure you bring them.
I can't wait for the next big rain so we can see what happens.
I know. I don't say that.
Yeah, I can wait. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see. The next committee is communications, but again, Joe's not here, so I'm not aware that anything's going on with communications.
Yeah, the last meeting, I don't think he was there. So the meeting, I couldn't even tell you when the last meeting actually was for that committee.
The next committee is
Diane, I actually had a question that was communications committee related, and that was that I heard yesterday that you are the new MPCA chair for the newsletter.
I volunteered to chair that with Mary Franz.
Okay.
So we're doing it together. It's nothing to do with council. It's just.
Well, I mean, if that is also the village's newsletter, I guess that was where I was coming around that.
Yeah, the only thing that's my understanding, the MPCA's job is to just contact the village and get their inserts. And and what they do now is the MPCA takes their articles and gives them to Inkscape, who formats them. So Inkscape is doing all the formatting. We're
Okay.
not doing, MPCA is not doing any of it. It's just providing, here's the articles and this is the order they go in.
Okay, that,
So the
that
village
clears that up.
provides the same thing, which then get passed on to Inkscape as well. So that's the extent of the involvement of MPCA in the village's piece.
Okay, then no, that clears everything up. Thank you. I just
And
looking
that,
for clarification.
and just so you know, that is correct. Becky does hers, she sends it over, they do theirs, they send it over, and then they put it all together. The only thing that we do and that MPCA does, once the proof is done, they do send it back to us, and that is where we would look over our section and they would look over their section. And then we would make any adjustments based on, you know, placement of different things maybe that we don't like or whatever. But as far, the only communication that I have had with Jean McCall about the newsletter over the last 4 months is, did you get your stuff in yet? That's pretty much, because we try to coordinate, you know, around the same time. But obviously they can't send it without my stuff and vice versa. So that's usually the only, I will say that's been the only, there's been times in which they need to get the newsletter out a little earlier because they have something pressing, or we have something that we need to get it out earlier because of something pressing. So that's been the only little conflict of, you know, making sure that we're all on the same page. I would say, you know, if there was one negative of having the newsletter merged, it is that. Not having total control of, hey, I need you to have your stuff today. We need to get it out. That obviously can't happen. That's
Right.
fine.
Okay. Okay, next is finance. We have, we've not had a finance meeting since the last work session. So as you saw, the budget information coming from Kim, and that's really, so I don't have anything new to report on that. I don't know, at this point, the mayor can kick in or not, or wait for her administrative update. Safety is the next committee. Brian?
Oh, sorry about that. So safety committee last meeting, we spoke about some no parking from here to curb signs, and the input we got was we were waiting on MI. I think Eric was getting MI some GIS data so they know where to put them, which is why they aren't there yet. And then we also talked about rules for the basketball court, which I have here. I will quickly share my screen to give them one last review, because it's the intention to make a motion on Monday to adopt these as the rules so that the village can go about making a sign. And the rules are as follows: use basketball court at your own risk. Full court games may only be played if no other players are waiting. Limit play to games to 21 points if other people are waiting to play. Do not hang on rim. Proper footwear required. No lowering of hoops. No glass or alcoholic beverages. Place trash in trash cans. No fighting. No weapons. So that was the final list after a mediumly robust discussion. So on Monday, I'll make a motion to adopt those as the basketball court rules, so the village can then go about making a sign.
I think they're great.
I am in total agreement as well.
And then only just because it jumped into my head when I read the no lowering of rims, Tiffany, I had sent you a link to the product that the manufacturer of those rims or those hoops or the whatever make to lock out the mechanism. I didn't know if we were planning on getting that or not.
I have sent that information to Eric as well.
Okay.
And as of right now, I am almost begging MI to, when they replace the one, because we are expecting MI to replace the one that is in fact broken.
Okay.
I'm actually trying to see if there is any way that they will purchase one that doesn't lower at all, as just an FYI.
Okay.
So we'll see, but it doesn't help the other one. I mean, we would still have the other one that does raise and lower. So I did send that information to Eric to see, you know, if yes. So we will get it handled before.
I mean, I would imagine with the one that's broken, the only thing that actually needs replaced is the backboard, not the whole
I don't
mechanism.
know.
And those lockout things were only $75 a piece.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
So
So
if that is in fact what they end up doing, just replacing the backboard and da. So we'll figure that out. And yes,
Yeah.
that is something that we will get because I'm in total agreement.
yeah, $150 is worth it.
Yes.
Okay. That was all I had.
Okay. We discussed legislation, so we'll pass to the administration. The
Was
mayor's update.
community covered?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Oh. No, it's right there in front of my
Yeah, I'm
face.
looking
And I
forward
jumped
to
right
community.
past it. Sorry about that, David.
No worries, no worries. So as a couple of you guys saw, I threw out a feeler on the Facebook page for the things they'd like. I mean, I mentioned the community committee, but you know, I guess council as a whole to address coming up in 2021, and I got a good 9 or 10 responses, which I'll pretty up. I'm sorry, does someone need to say something?
No, somebody needs to mute, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'm gonna type up a pretty little document and send it to everybody, and we can add, you know, we can begin studying the feasibility of that, of those requests. And it seems like we have just an embarrassment of riches of tools and talent of people who are willing to help with these things should they need or should they get off the ground, which is wonderful. So I'll do that and send that out to you guys for those who didn't happen to see it. We can schedule my schedule's still kind of up in the air, sadly, but once I get that figured out, we can schedule a community meeting to discuss the priorities for the new year, provided I'm still in that committee with if there's any rearrangements. I love it, but yeah, we can do that in early January and figure out what our priorities are for the year and what we can start doing. Secondly, and this just I can't claim to be perfectly inspired on my own by this, but I saw that the nation of Ireland wrote out a coronavirus exemption for Santa Claus to travel from home to home and post curfews. So I believe that seeing as the state of Ohio has not done it, that Madam Mayor, in your role as the primary village administration, Councilman Wolf, in your role as the safety committee, and myself as the role of community, we should draft up a document that will permit house-to-house travel and exemption of curfew for Old St. Nick, a one-night exemption, if anybody else would like to sign on to that.
David, if you write it, I'll gladly sign off on it.
Okay.
And David, I cannot wait to see the community proposal for the bridge over Route 3 and or tunnel under 161 to connect the village to the Alum Creek walking trail.
Yeah, I did notice
Eric,
that came up.
Eric or Jesse, if you could get on what we're going to need to do to buy rights to the land on the other side of that street. Maybe we could consult with Westerville for their $1 million walking bridge that went over College Avenue and how they accomplished it. That would be great.
Well,
Yeah,
I
the mayor
didn't
and I had a
assume that
discussion.
everything will be able to be accomplished, but we do have some true visionaries in our community, and I welcome their input.
Okay, Eric, do you want to, it's
No,
funny.
go ahead,
you do
Mayor.
that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so essentially, we're in the process of reaching out to Morpsey as a coordinator on this, because they're the ones that funnel this kind of money. There is a way to make connection back to the industrial park. It will take coordination of multiple entities, and it will take a couple of years, but there's a definite need, and there's a definite ability to do something like this and get help with the funding. And obviously there's parts of it outside the village. It all needs to be drawn in together. So we're going to start that process.
We have, yeah, Morpsey and I have already, we've started talking about that since January of last year. So one of the very first conversations I had with her was about that, because there is so much interest in our area. I have had people write me letters. I have had, like you guys know, you saw the Facebook page. I think that was probably 9 out of 10 of the comments. The other part to that comment is, and you know, this is something that I would love for the village to start talking about, whether it be planning and zoning, safety, all of the above. And maybe some people have no interest in this, but a one-side path down Minerva Lake Road is probably going to be one of the prime pushes if we were able to get the Elm Creek connector. To being able to join with them, they're going to want something, you know, some of these entities are going to want us to have something down Minerva Lake Road that connects to Cleveland Avenue. So if you're going to keep connecting, you might as well keep connecting.
Here, here.
So, yeah, one of the things that, you know, has been brought up for Diane, maybe you know how long it's been coming up, but, you know, I know it's been coming up for years that, you know, people want something down Minerva Lake Road because walking in the street is very difficult, yada, yada, yada. We already know what we're going to face. There's going to be a lot of people that don't necessarily want to give up a little bit of their front yard. But we have 2 new schools coming in, and I think we all know that. We have a lot of kids that are going to be walking to school. So this is not something that's going to happen in June of 2021. I'm fully aware of that, but I would love to know whether or not the rest of council has any interest in, and there are grants, Eric, I think you actually know what it's called, but it has to do with a safe walkway to school. I don't know exactly what it's called.
Safe Sidewalks program. There's money for that.
Yeah. So there are some different things that we could look into. So I'm not talking about, you know, before we start saying anything, I'm not talking about footing the bill for this entire thing. And again, it's going to take some work with all of the residents, and there's going to be some trees, and there's going to be some different things that people are going to not be happy about. But I think the end result, I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are on that. Does anybody have any objection to trying to get a walking path down Minerva Lake Road?
I feel like the first step would to actually do some sort of investigation in the feasibility of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't know that the topography is such that it would be feasible.
That'd be part of the program. We would have to go through that process.
Yeah, because I know, like, you know, just thinking where I live here on Maplewood, it would be almost, due to the nature of things, it'd be almost impossible to put sidewalks in with how many drastically sloped drives we have, that you'd have to either have a sidewalk that was at a 15-degree angle, or really that'd be the only thing, or the number of people who have, you know, stone wall. I have a stone wall that goes down the side of my driveway all the way to the road pretty much. That would need to get removed, you know.
Sure.
And I don't know the houses well enough on Minerva Lake to know if most of those are flat. I know there's a couple that are sitting on hills.
Yeah. So our initial, you know, preliminary type survey of it is that we have plenty of right of way, so we don't need to take anyone's property. That's very important. Second of all, for the most part, it's flat. There's obviously going to be, you know, like anything, there's going to be a little bit of topography to work through, and that all has to be engineered and how it gets done. But that will be part of the process. So as we move through, you know, and again, the actual technical, well, the full program term is Safe Routes to School. The federal DOT has lots of money for that. Morpsey is the administrator of that money. So at the end of the day, it's how it will be funneled to us, and for that purpose. So it's an ongoing grant program every year. And so we would have to outlay some money in the beginning to do some engineering, and that all goes into the whole project. So we would work this together. It's going to take a little while. This is the beginning.
Right. So it was
Yeah.
something that Eric and I obviously have talked about. It's something that planning and zoning has talked about. The Jordan Road connector has been talked about for years. So, I mean, I guess I really just kind of wanted to make sure that there wasn't anybody totally against us, at least starting the conversation with council, seeing if it's an option. And again, it may not, it absolutely may not work, but I mean, it's something that I think is with these kids that will be walking, and trust me, I would love it more than anything just for myself as a personal reason, but the most important thing is getting some of these kids off the side of the street. So, because the amount of kids I think that will be walking compared to, you know, right now, all of our middle schoolers are bused to Heritage. They're all going to be walking to school now. They walk even earlier in the morning in which it's dark. So, you know, it would just be nice.
Well, we'd have to, the
One thing
reason,
I'll say about that is Westerville, I believe even when they were going to eliminate busing at one point in a levy battle,
Yeah.
didn't eliminate it for the Minerva Park people going to Hawthorne because of the lack of sidewalks. They said it's not safe for kids. So Westerville does bus people. As far as the new elementary goes, those attendance boundaries aren't set yet.
I know.
But every proposed map I've seen so far for attendance boundaries has the MI section going to that new elementary school, but the classic section of the village staying at Hawthorne. So the MI section that would go to that new school would already have sidewalks since they have sidewalks in place. And I'm not at all coming out like I hate sidewalks or don't want them. I'm just pointing out
That's good
some of
information.
some of those school safety concerns are kind of addressed just by the way Westerville has managed busing and walking.
And it's funny, when we met with Westerville schools, and Eric was in that meeting, that was one of the first questions he asked, was about, you know, whether or not that was gonna change.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that on that. Do you want me to continue with kind of where we're at?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really, it's December. There's not much going on. November was pretty slow as well. I'm just going to be the first person to say, I don't know if no one's working or people are just really not working much. I'm in the process of working on several different things and getting phone call. You know, people will come out and then they just don't respond. So I'm in the process of getting the carpet installed, but that has been a process. I was supposed to have a quote within 48 hours, and a week and a half later, after numerous phone calls, emails, and text messages, I finally got it. So we're hoping that Thursday that's actually going to be installed. Same thing with the railing, the handrails. I've had at least 10 phone calls, emails back and forth, and I still don't have a date that they're going to come out and measure.
are you talking about Fortin?
Yes.
I'll get it. I found a place. I forgot. I'll get a number for a place.
Okay. Yeah. So, and again, I communicate with them and then they fall off the face of the earth. And then, you know, we've already got the estimate. We've already done the PO. We've already done everything. We've gotten everything, but we're still waiting. So, as you guys know, I have a couple different people that I'm waiting for estimates. I have given all of them deadlines by the end of the year for dredging. Not sure if anybody's actually going to do it or not, but that seems to be the scenario with most everything that I'm involved with right now. Is everybody's in their own pace at work. So I have met with Higher Power. If anybody has an electrician that they could give me a recommendation, I would love it. Again, the communication just isn't there. I brought them out. They were supposed to send me 2 or 3 different estimates for 2 or 3 different projects. That was over 30 days ago. And again, back in the same boat. So not trying to bash everybody right now. Maybe they're ill, very possibly they are ill, or a family member's ill, who knows? But that's the way it's
Very possible. Look at the numbers.
Exactly. So I'm not trying to judge anybody, but for me to be able to get some of this stuff done, obviously I need people's communication. And right now I'm looking for a recommendation for an electrician at this point. So I think that would be great. And I did talk to AEP about getting some outlets over by the basketball court, some electric over by the basketball court, and also not for lighting, don't worry. And then also over by the dam and AEP told me exactly what I need to do, how we need to do it. It would cost, one of them is going to cost about $1,000 for AEP to do what they need to do because they have to run the lines over across to the other side of the street. And maybe we won't do it. I mean, that's all stuff that I'm going to get a blessing from you guys before I do anything. But I'm just kind of giving you guys a heads up as to what I've been doing or what we've been doing. So we did bring AEP out. They did give me some ideas, but I need an electrician to give me an estimate. What's that?
The electrician to do
So the electrician is apparently the one that comes and puts the pole in and does all of this, and then AEP comes and connects everything and does like the whatever. But
okay.
so you have to have and you guys, you probably know way more of what I'm talking about with this, but yes, they have to, my electrician person has to come and do all of the starter work, and then AEP comes and finishes what they need to do. That much I do know. I have the documents of exactly what they need to do and the parameters of what they need to do. But I need an electrician. So, and not just an electrician that does this type of work with poles and, all that kind of stuff. So
have you ever got a hold of Jess? Well, all right. Well, I'll talk to you later. But.
Yeah. So I'm in need of something like that. Just to get an estimate, because I can't tell you guys how much it's going to be to run, and if it's worth it. The main thing I'm thinking of is having electricity over there in the event we eventually do something with the amphitheater. It's going to be over there. It's obviously a timely process in order to get all of this done. So it took AEP 3 weeks to come out just to give me what I need to do, how I need to do it. So point being, if we want to do it, we can do it. If we don't want to do it, we don't have to do it, but it's something that I would like to, for Christmas lights and for different things like that. I think it would be great to have electricity over there. But at the end of the day, is it something that's needed? No, not at this time. But if it's economical, it would be nice to be able to have it over there. Other than that, let me think.
I'm heading off, guys. I got to work tonight.
Oh,
Bye, David.
bye, David.
I'll write that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll write it up. Hopefully tonight when I have a minute. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bye.
Bye.
One of the other things I have on there is any update on Garmin Miller or care spending?
Care spending has to hit the credit card by December 15th. So at this point in time, we did send a lot of the money back, whether or not you guys know that or not. We sent a majority of the money back because there was no way we could spend it. I mean, we sent them, I believe, $60-some thousand back already. We did keep some of the money to do the carpet, to do a couple different things with KGT. But at this point, I do not have a final number or anything like that, but there was no way we could spend anywhere near it. Obviously, if you guys are watching some of the current things going on in government, who knows if we're going to get any more for 2021. I guess that's up in the air. The Garmin Miller, no updates yet. Hopefully we will hear something this week. And then number 2, what else did you say? There was one more.
No, just Garmin Miller and care spending. And you already talked about the stairs. The stairs are done for the police except for the railing. Is
the railing. We're waiting for the railing. There was something on the tip of my tongue when you said Garmin Miller, though. Let me think of what that was. I don't know. We're still working limited hours. We're going to continue that through part of January. January 4th or 6th or whatever is the tentative date to come back. It's going to depend on the cases. The other thing that it really may depend on is whether, we want to extend it a little bit past that with anybody that's celebrating Christmas and New Year's Eve or anything like that. Maybe it's just smarter to keep everybody out till about the, 14th or whatever. There's no reason to bring anybody in. I'm not going to, I'll leave all that out. We've been collecting for toys. I did reach out to Hawthorne, and Hawthorne does have some kids that are in need. They are going to be sending the information to Becky. I don't know if she got it Friday, so I will update that information as soon as we have it, but we have collected quite a bit of toys for Children's Hospital if we don't need them for the village. So whatever's left over, we're going to take to Children's. So again, if anybody here knows anybody in need, it is completely anonymous. All you do is fill out their address, the kids' names, ages. That's it. Any interest that you know that they may have. We don't know who it's being sent from. So again, if anybody knows anybody that could use a little bit of assistance for getting their children some, Christmas presents or anything like that, that's what we're looking to do. Again, we've had quite a bit of drop-offs from that. So Becky and Leah are both coming in. We're trying to keep everybody scattered, like you guys know. A lot of times we try to get Becky in there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just to go through the mail, to post the things that she needs to do, to make sure that Leah has everything. And then Leah's pretty much doing the same thing, just a little bit different hours. So that's that. There's just really not much going on, which is not a bad thing. We are still getting permits. Eric has been handling those right now. We do have, at this point in time, yes, we are posting for a code enforcement officer to get them in there by January. And that's probably the biggest things that we have going on right now. And I will go into this, and Eric can chime in if he has any interest in chiming in, but this is something I guess I would, and I know Tony has one thought as to what direction he would like to see code enforcement go to. I don't know what other council members have interest in. I know what I have budgeted. You guys haven't taken that away, so I know obviously that I can hire somebody. But I think if I do hire somebody and it doesn't last, again, we really have got to figure something out. Having a revolving door for code enforcement this year is going to prove to be awful. The amount of permits that we got last year, I expect that to be even higher this year. That's probably one of the biggest complaints that we get, is that it takes too long to get permits. Or, again, if Jason had it and now Eric's trying to find it. And so we are currently going through that right now. I'm just going to be blunt and say that, yeah, one person had a permit. Now it's none of them are lost. It's just a matter of they're delayed. Getting somebody that's willing to stay in that role is key. And I think we've really alluded to that. I'm going to say it. We don't need a 40-hour-a-week person. We don't. I mean, if so, they have to have multiple things to do. And I'm not saying that in June and July, we couldn't use it, but come on, in November and December, no, we get a handful of permits. But there's not a lot of benefit to stay. And you need somebody that's somewhat qualified. I mean, if they know what they're doing and they know what our codes are and they know, all of that kind of stuff, they're either too qualified to be there. I mean, we're paying great money. I don't know. At this point, I guess I could talk in circles. All I know is we can't continue to have a revolving door with code enforcement, and we've got to get somebody that knows what they're doing, or else we're wasting our time. We might as well do it like Tony's alluded to, do it ourselves. So you have to get somebody that's qualified to do it. So it's just something that we've really got to figure out, a benefit to keep these people here. The applicants that we typically get are not ideal or qualified. I think that's the other part to this. I mean, most of them they're just not. And I mean, to get somebody to come in here for 20 hours a week is difficult, with no benefits, with no reason. So I don't know. If you guys want to spin it in your own little head, go for it.
I like this. The direction that I'd like to see is for it to be done. I wouldn't say in-house. Well, yeah. I mean, with the current staff that we have, a combination of Becky and and the Planning and Zoning Commission is the people that I'm looking to take this on.
And Tony, I don't have an argument for you except for this. And I'm going to give you a couple real quick examples of what we need to make sure. So, and we don't know exactly, that'll be, Diane, don't let me forget to talk about planning and zoning. My concern with that is 11 o'clock in the afternoon, I had a contractor calling me because he's not been able to get a hold of anybody. He's frustrated. He's trying to start his job and he doesn't have his permit yet. So the issue becomes, who's going to handle that at that point? Who's approving that permit? Are we expecting Becky to be able to look at it and approve it? Or is planning and zoning going to approve it? Planning and zoning only meets twice a month. We go back to that scenario. You can't have these contractors that are, I mean, this one contractor has 6 permits and has done 6 permits.
Well,
And Go ahead.
here's the issue. Here's the issue is why we have to make people get permit. That's the underlying problem that we still haven't figured out is when someone needs to get a permit.
so
So
Franklin
big part
County
of our
requires,
problem-
so Franklin County requires our certificate to do any of the building stuff.
Right, but here we are
Jump
again.
in whenever we're ready here.
Building department's issues, and we still are waiting here. We're waiting on Franklin County to get back with this still.
Still,
Well, Jesse, I mean, this
Cindy
is.
and I are working on that. Okay. So they're just been a little slow with COVID, but if I can jump in, I got a couple quick thoughts. So you do have two clear options in front of you. Now, one option, which I'm not a fan of from experience and, from different way municipalities work, but it's local decision making. You can make this an experiment. You can eliminate all permits and see how it goes, and just be aware that, in a few years, if you change your minds and like, oh, it's a hot mess, it's going to be very difficult to unwind. So that's one way to go. All right. And that way you don't really need a code officer, to approve permits, because that would save time, and you can figure out how you want to address the code enforcement standpoint separately. Right. And honestly, I can't tell you if you're going to have more work or less work under that scenario from on the back end versus the front end. So the reason, again, we do permits is to eliminate problems on the front end, is why you have code and permits in the first place. But, again, that's a local choice, and I'll leave that to you guys at the end of the day to debate. The other option, getting back to the mayor's original discussion, your 20-hour week is problematic, all right, because you're not offering benefits. I think if the village found a way to offer benefits to part-time employees, and it's not just for your code enforcement officer, I think it'll apply to however you handle your maintenance people as well, depending on how you went full-time with a combination of full-time, part-time. You still need to handle benefits. Benefits are what keep these people around a long period of time, and you can find a higher amount of candidates, right? Income's one, but clearly insurance is the other. So I think that'll fix a lot of your problems, as far as that's concerned. And I will just say that, from a permitting standpoint, I realize in past years it may have been slower, especially as the MI subdivision has ramped up. But I can tell you now that MI subdivision is finished. Permits are busy. I have been particularly buried catching up on permits in the last few weeks because of Jason's departure from work and trying to pick things up. And, there is a gap when people leave. And, I had this happen before when we went through, about 6 months of no code enforcement officers. It's difficult. We'll get through it. Better that happens this time of year because it slows down a little bit, as the mayor mentioned, compared to June or July. But right now, as many houses you have, you've got a full round-the-year permitting situation going on. So just letting you know. And that's pretty much my two thoughts on that. And I'm sure you'll be discussing this type of stuff more.
right. And yes, again, with the weather being like it is, we have a guy, like I said, that's trying to start it right now. So, and again, going back to this, I'm not going to go through all of these different, phone calls and emails that we get, but I will tell you, we have a couple code enforcement officers that live in the village that are, I'm saying that to be funny, that definitely notice everything and email us all of the issues, problems, complaints throughout the village constantly. And I laugh because it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's something that, they're residents and they're allowed to let us know what they don't want to see. So who handles those? Again, is it Becky is sending out a letter? I mean, if I'm going to pull Becky into doing a code enforcement job in which we're paying, somebody typically in June, July, and August, let's go back to those months, she's not going to have the time to do it. I mean, she is busy doing other things. And I think the problem is, it would be nice for people to really understand exactly what she does do, when it does come to the newsletter and the website. Those are just two of the minor things that she does. She does do the permitting. When we have a busy day in there and over, people calling in for permitting questions, people calling in and asking for me, they still get police phone calls constantly. They get MPCA phone calls. She does. She gets a lot of phone calls. I mean, her job is also to answer the phone and the door all day long. So every time somebody walks in the door, that's who goes and does it. So it's just a matter of remembering that if we give her another position, there's no way she would be able to do that by herself. There's no way. So it's a matter of, and I'm not saying she couldn't contribute to it, because that I do believe she could do. But it's how much of a role would planning and zoning play? How much of a role would planning and zoning pay? And would we have one specific person from planning and zoning that would deal with the issues and the complaints and go check on the things that, you know, if we issue a citation, who's going to go check on it 2 days later to make sure it was actually resolved? Is that going to be Becky, or is that going to be somebody from planning and zoning? Because if you're going to send out a letter, you got to follow up to make sure they actually did what they're going to do. And that's where I see the problem with having it planning and zoning. If you have a code enforcement officer, that's what he's going to do. Like right now, I sent Eric to go look at something just a couple days ago. And then of course, Eric goes back 2 days later to follow up. So it's a matter of, you know, we have to have a set person or a set plan that they're going to do. So I'm not saying planning and zoning can't do it. But I'm saying that that's something that we're going to have to get resolved ASAP, figure out exactly how we want to maintain and how we want to do all of that. And we do need to make sure that there's some, you know, when I have the complaint, I need to know who to give it to, or else I'm Mr. Planning and Zoning. So at some point there has to be a boundary between who's doing it, who's not doing it. You get the point. So, you know, I know we've talked about it a lot. And now's the time to figure it out. I think that's still where we're at. So I'm not against Tony's plan whatsoever. I will say this, Eric, I am against just let everybody figure it out. Only because I've also seen the complaints coming in with people not liking the way that the decks are being done, and it's too far to the front and they don't like it too far to the front. So then you have that problem. So, you know, again, it's fine if we want to let people do that, but then I'm the one, and I'm not trying to be lazy, that is what I get paid to do. But then I'm the one that has to deal with all of the complaints from that aspect. So, you know, you have to make sure that and again, there's people that paid, whether they paid $200,000 or $400,000 for their house, they do want some rules and regulations over there. Most people, and I think, Tony, your problem is the same as mine. I think most people are smart enough to do the right thing. But unfortunately, you do get those handful of people that maybe don't know the rules and don't realize that they can't put a shed 2 feet over their property line. So, you know, then there's that. So I'm open for suggestions. Obviously, I knew this was a topic that you guys would like to hit on before we do hire somebody. Again, Eric hit that on the head as to whether or not we want to offer any benefits. All I'm telling you guys is anytime we have a revolving door, we have just as many people complaining. And I would love to just let you guys know who is complaining to me that we do not have a code enforcement, because they are mad because there's stuff that is not being enforced right now. And there's only so much I can have Eric do. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, Eric is also part-time. But I have a laundry list of, I have 3 residents that are hounding me like there is no tomorrow. So just so you guys know, but it's a live meeting and I don't want to go into detail. So, and I have been reprimanded via text as well. So, planning and zoning.
I see a question here about the interpretation of the building code when it comes to minor repairs. You know, I brought this up repeatedly that, you know, I think it's 102.10.2, 102.10.2 of the state residential building code that describes what minor repairs are. I'm trying to understand why we cannot interpret that paragraph, because that's the crux of our problem between Franklin County and myself, is that they decided to interpret that differently. Why? I don't understand why we have to abide by their interpretation of it, because their interpretation, in my opinion, is flawed.
Well, Eric and I finally managed to get in touch with Franklin County. So we're going to meet, we have a conference called Friday morning with them. I'm trying to like close all the loops of conversations Gene had with other people. So getting everybody on the same Zoom together and talking. And now that I know exactly the provision you're talking about, I'll bring that up. The only thing I can think is if it's some type of general law applicable to the entire state, that could limit our ability to interpret it. But I'll look at that and make sure I bring that up.
Yeah, that is the crux of my issue.
With the building inspector.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear their explanation.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay, we have Yeah, I'm sorry, Tiffany, did you say you're done?
No, not done.
Okay.
Last thing. We have gotten some applications for planning and zoning, as everybody remembered, or as maybe some of you don't know. One of the things that I had said that we were going to make sure that we were doing is following planning and zoning rules. Planning and zoning rules, 2 seats are up this year as voting members. It does not say that the original voting members cannot reapply, but we will be reviewing all of the applicants that have come in. Donna and Lisa's seats are both up. They both know they have the ability to give me an application or a resume or just a letter of intent, whatever they want to do. If they do prefer to stay on as voting members, or if they would prefer to be a non-voting member. I do have a deadline for the end of this year. And I would like we have a planning and zoning meeting early January, as well as the council meeting. So I will be bringing my recommendations to you guys that first council meeting for you guys to yay or nay our planning and zoning commission. So again, I do have a couple applicants. Do you guys want to see any of that stuff, or do you guys just want me to send it to you? And I do have one that reached out to me, but I don't think I've actually gotten her letter of intent. So Diane, if you could push that along. I don't know. I think you know who it is.
No, I don't.
Okay, then I'll reach out. So I do have a couple already, and I'm waiting for Donna and Lisa's decisions as to what they're wanting to do. And what, again, I expect them to present me their letter of intent of one direction or another. So
have you put something in the newsletter?
I don't know if it did hit the newsletter this month. I believe it does. I believe it did. It did last month. I'm almost positive it did last month. So I will send out, because I have some. I mean, obviously we put it somewhere because some people sent them that
Somebody knows.
I don't know. Yeah, so we have some. So we've obviously put it somewhere. I'll make a Facebook page just for like a final push today. But just again, so you guys are aware, we do have the two voting seats up, and we currently have 1 non-voting. So there could be a potential of 3 new members, 3 of the same members, moving them around, whatever. So if anybody knows anybody that wants to join planning and zoning, now's the time. Everybody knows that I have wanted so bad a person from the new development, and I do not have any. So I know we're not live streamed right now, but if anybody knows anybody in the new development that would be a person of interest, please get them to send in a letter of intent or anything that they can send in to me by the end of the year.
Then do we just, as a council, vote on who we're going to accept and not accept for those positions then?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, I'm going to bring you my recommendation, and you guys can yay or nay it, and whatever. So
They're appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of council.
If you guys don't, if you guys don't like my advice, then you guys can switch it around. There you go. So that was all I have. But yes, the intent is to follow the rules this year. So I think Diane and Tony and them will be happy that we're going to do that finally. Instead of just continually moving forward. So it's the end of the year, and this is what we're doing. And we're going to do it every year for the next 4 years that I'm here, 3 years, whatever. That's it.
Is there any, so P&Z is next on the list, and is there any Westerville school update or green space update or any other update?
I'll let Tony, I can answer the Westerville schools really fast, and then I can let Eric chime in for a second. No, I mean, maybe I should let Eric. Eric,
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything great.
No, you see what they're doing. They're in the middle of their excavation. As the mayor, I think, put out an email last week or so, we're going to get some dirt from them. So I'm trying to coordinate with their excavator. Had some lousy weather there for a little bit. And then now I think we're going to be able to move some dirt when they're ready to again over to the pool area. So that's about the only major update at this time.
Okay.
And then planning and zoning, if Tony wants to chime in on that. I know we didn't have a meeting. We don't have a meeting in December, but the green space
We've
planning
had a meeting since the last report.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was like the 18th.
Except for I will say that we will start talking about permitting. Permitting and where if planning and zoning sees a possible role in that process and the code enforcement stuff. That's all I got.
Okay, it's 9:20. Does anyone have any other issues that they'd like to discuss in this work session? And will it be the first work session of next year that we'll take a look at what we like to accomplish for the year and kind of prioritize? Do we want to do that again next year?
I would love to. Whether or not we do, here's my 2 cents on that, Diane. That work session we usually do use to go over the agenda and everything for Monday night, to try to keep Monday night's meeting to a minimal. And I don't know that we would have that much time. The last year or two, I think we used that second Monday. So personally, I like having the 2 work sessions, even via Zoom. And I think especially because we're Zoom, that it would be nice to keep that. I know sometimes we may need to use those for committee meetings and things like that, but I would love to see that first one, the second Monday or third Monday or whatever it is, as that meeting, because I mean, I'm hoping that eventually we'll get back to in-person meetings at some point in 2021 and, all of that. But at this point, I think a good plan for 2021 would be great.
Okay. Anyone else comment on that? Okay, so anyone else, do we have a move to adjourn then?
Move to adjourn.
Bye, guys. Everybody have a great holiday.
All right, yeah, happy holiday.
All right.